Welcome to Fantastic Fiber Friday. And for the past 2 weeks, I've been teaching over at Adult Ed about spinning and fiber prep. And last night was our fiber prep class, so I thought I would kind of transfer the class over to the video a little bit and show you some different fiber prep tools. Now, as you can, I don't know if you can see, but right in front of me I have a whole bunch of different carders and a drum carder. So we'll talk about carding first. And there's different types of hand carders and drum carders. I'm going to go over the hand carding type first, and I've got 4 sets of carders here. And these are some newer Ashford carders, and they have quite a stiff tine to them, and they're spaced pretty far apart. And these are what would be your regular wool carders. Usually one's marked left and one's marked right, or at least one is marked left. This one has a little L there. And you work this one in the left hand. And I've decided I'm going to go ahead and do some fiber prep videos on how to card on hand carders and a drum carder, and also how to comb. But we'll get to the combing later. So this is your basic set of wool hand carders, and I do have another set of those. They're shaped slightly different, but these are also made by Ashford, and they're all one piece as opposed to 2 pieces that we got here. I noticed this one has a little bit of a jiggle to it, but that screw in there is really tight. So in a way, I kind of like these better all being one piece, though the handle on this is a little bit more comfortable, I think. But it's completely up to you. Now, I do prefer to have the curve in my carders instead of flat carders because it's a little bit easier on the wrist when you're carding. And I also have 2 sets of cotton carders, or fine wool. I would use these for my merinos or angora or cotton. They have a much softer tine, and it's set much closer together, and I'll hold them up next to each other so you can see the wool comb versus the cotton comb.
Can't tell.
Can't tell? Maybe I'll move this one closer. Through the magic of Dwayne, he's gonna take it over to the camera a little closer for me. And here is the regular wool carder, and you can kind of see the differences there. And you'll see that my cotton carders, I have 2 different sizes. And they do come in a half size or a student size. It's about from here over. It's a little bit smaller. This is usually about the full size. And this set, which we were trying to read the back of it where they come from, because these are pretty old. In fact, the rest of these have rubber on them, and the tines are embedded in the rubber. This is actually leather. These are so old.
Cow.
Yeah, it's ladybug season here. They're all coming out all over the place. Dwayne just said holy cow, and that's what he was saying holy cow about. We've got ladybugs everywhere this time of year. It's starting to warm up, and they hatch and come out.
Nasty.
I try to stick them in a few plants. They're supposed to be good luck and good fortune. So I actually don't try to mess with them too much. They fade far too quickly anyway. They don't live very long. I think they live only 2 or 3 days. So these cotton carders are actually much older because they are embedded in the leather. And we were trying to read the name on the back. It looks like it says Whitemore. So I'm going to Google that later and see what I can find. And they are pretty much look like they're nailed in or tacked into place. If you look around the edge of this, you can see the tacks. But still seem to be in pretty good condition, workable, and I can't wait to actually try these new ones. These were donated by one of my other students who felt she didn't have any use for them. She had her wheel, and they came with her wheel. So those are the hand carders, and then of course you have your drum carder. And mine is super high speed now because my husband lovingly got me a motor for it. But actually on the one side here, there was, on this side over here, let me put that down. This side over here, there was a crank. And I would pull my fiber apart, put it on the tray, and crank it. Now I just have to turn it on and tell it to go forward or backward, and there's a dial on the side that tells you if you want to go fast or slow. And there are many types of drum carders out there. Mine is a fancy kitten, or just a kitten carder. They have the fancy kitty and at Ron Anderson Originals. And the neat thing about this, and part of the reason why I chose this, is because you can remove this big drum and put in a different size drum. Now, my carder's set up to do medium to fine fibers right now, but I could take out this back drum here and put in a drum for coarser fibers or much finer fibers. If all I was doing was Angora, I would probably go for the super fine, because they all have a different cloth that they put around the drum, just like they have different cloth that they put on the hand carders for different types of fiber. And that is one of the reasons I chose this, because it is interchangeable. You don't have to buy a whole new drum carder to do a whole different fiber. And these work great. I can put about, I figured, before I got a drum carder, I had gotten an order in for a specific blend of fiber, and I had to do it all on hand carders. 4 ounces. These hold about 1/8 of an ounce at a time. I can do 1 ounce at a time on the drum carder, and that's the big difference, especially if you're trying to produce larger amounts of fiber. But if you have a lot of time on your hands and a lot of patience, hand card away. So that is my tutorial for the different types of carders, and we're going to move on to combs now. Shut the camera off. We're back, and we're going to move on to different types of combs. And one of the most common combs that you see are single or double tined hand combs, which is what these are. These are indigo hound combs. And I did get the set that's set a little bit closer together because I work with a lot of alpaca, and that's a bit of a finer fiber. The regular wool set, the tines are set a little bit further apart. But these are very nice if you just want to sit and work with your wool in your lap. There also is an optional clamp, and you clamp this to your table, put your comb through, and twist it down to hold it in place. And I really do like these combs for doing samples. They're wonderful. This is first usually what I go to. But this is just one type of comb, and like I said, you can get them in the single row tines or the double row tines. The double row tines, they'll be offset, where you see a space in between. There would be one behind it. Now this set, which is really well made, as you see, the clamps actually came with it, along with the stand, and everything hides away to be very, very safe if you have young children. Whoop, clamp fell off. This set is a set for fine fibers, and I've actually combed some Angora top with these, or alpaca top, and these are for really fine fibers. You see how close, and there's 2 rows of tines, and like I said, they're offset. But you see how much closer the tines are spaced together. The spacing is definitely much closer. And these work great for working with your fine fibers and making fine tops. Now I have the Granddaddy, and we were using these last night, so I'm pulling fiber off them. The Granddaddy of the wool combs, which is your English combs. And these can come in, I've seen them in 4, 5, and I think even 6 rows. These are actually, this one actually has 5 rows of tines, and it's kind of hard to look through because in between each set, there's another one, and they're graduated towards the back, as you can see. And these are for really long fibers. Like I do a lot of Coopworth. I love Coopworth, and I don't know what it is about the wool, but it's just absolutely lovely, and I like working with it. And it has a very long staple. So those wools that have the longer staples are great to work with this. I've worked with fibers that were up to 8 inches long with these, and it came out beautiful. And they also came with their own. The English wool combs usually do come with a stand, and you just clamp the stand down, and there's actually holes in the handle, so you can clamp them into place. And I love these for when I'm working with my longer fibers. Now, there's another piece of equipment that I have here. I'm going to try to scoot everything out of the way. And this is a hackle. And sometimes you will see sets, and I think they're really interesting, where you will get a comb and maybe half this size of hackle as a combing set, and that works really well too. What I mainly use a hackle for is blending fibers of different colors that are the same length. And the important thing when you comb is it is really hard to mix different lengths together, because the shorter length will get taken off as waste. Whereas when you're carding, you can blend fibers of different lengths together and they'll blend together. So basically I go ahead and lash the locks on, or whatever fiber that I'm using, and then you can go ahead, once you have it built up to about halfway, and take your diz and diz it right off. But I've also used this just to help me comb larger amounts of fiber than what I could fit on my combs. I would probably take this and one of my indigo hound combs and comb out some fiber. And that works really well too. And these come in different lengths depending on how much roving you want to create, or how much top you want to create. And you can get them, I think I've seen them up to 18 inches wide. I think this one is only 12. But this is just another option for you on your combing when you want to comb. So that is what I have for you about the different types of wool combs. Oh, and bear in mind, if there's a lot of vegetation in something, combing will help get the vegetation out. Carding will not. It'll just get stuck in your hand carders or your drum carder. I've done it. It's a mess. You don't want to do that. So if you have something you decide you want to card that has a lot of veg in it, try to take most of the veg out before you do card it. If you're combing it, it will fall right out as it's being combed, which is the wonderful thing about combing. I have even gone so far as to comb something before I card it if it has a lot of vegetation in it and the staple's long enough to comb. And that is all I have for this week. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week.